Oh, Danny boy, Danny boy, Danny boy. I get knocked down, but I get up again. Never gonna keep me down. Welcome back to another ep on the Daily Vedantic. Why did I just sing Chumbawamba? You're about to find out, and it might not be what you expect. In our series on the Gita, this 20-part series going over the profundity of the world's most famous poem, a 30-minute read, 700 verses, this dialogue between this warrior prince and what he thinks is his charioteer. In the middle of this great Civil War battle, the pinnacle of the Civil War, this huge battle that's about to take place, he is just having a total meltdown. He's trying to act tough in the beginning, says, Krishna, his charioteer, take me to the middle of the battle so I can survey both sides, middle of the battlefield so I can survey both sides. And then he gets there and breaks down, folds like a lawn chair. We spent the first 10 episodes in this series talking about the often discussed major themes that might be new to many of our listeners. I know it was very new to me. I never read the Gita until I was about 31. And always ask myself, why did it take so long for anyone around me to even recommend reading this ancient poem? And the reason I ask, why did it take so long for me to hear that I should read this thing is because there are so many profound themes within it. In previous episodes in this series, I've talked about some of the major themes. Some people distill it down to one major theme. And I talk about that in the first episode of this series. But the last few episodes and the second half is on the underdiscussed principles and themes within the Gita. Today's episode is on the psychology of teaching. Krishna, who enters the scene as this charioteer, this childhood friend, this wise but kind of worldly guide for Arjuna, the warrior prince, this famous warrior prince, ends up being much more than a charioteer. He ends up being the symbolic embodiment of God. Not God. It's not a Christ type of figure where you're supposed to say that's God and Arjuna is just a man. It's meant to be a symbolic embodiment of God. This symbolic embodiment, as he guides Arjuna, uses so many psychological tactics to get Arjuna's attention. This is not something that's usually discussed when diving into the themes of the Gita or the wider philosophy of Vedanta, of which this is a anchoring text. But it is almost as profound as the message. How the message is delivered is not as important as the message, but the message being received by that recipient, by the student, by the audience, by Arjuna in this case, that is just as important as the message itself. What good is a message if it is not received? And Arjuna goes from this trembling, knee-shaking breakdown of a human to, by the end of this conversation with his charioteer, ends up being this extremely brave, courageous, powerful victor in this battle. How does Krishna get him there? There is the message, yes, and that's what many of these episodes in the series are dedicated to. But the psychology that he uses is, as we say here in the West a lot, Krishna meets him where he is. The teacher meets him where he is. And it's so much more than that. He uses all of the things that Arjuna values: name, fame, victory, his life. He uses those things to get him to transcend those things. See, Arjuna is freaking out because he doesn't want to die. He doesn't want to lose. He doesn't want to fight his kith and kin because this is a civil war after all. And they are vastly outnumbered. So he knows, oh shit, this probably won't work out for me and my brothers and our side of the battle. Now that we're seeing the armies face to face, we're wildly outnumbered. But Krishna walks him through, in the first few chapters, walks him through just the worldly things that Arjuna cares about. And this psychology of teaching is so easy to overlook because it is the latter chapters or the deep, philosophical, profound topics that people come to the Gita for. But how Krishna teaches him is how every teacher should teach, taking us from the known to the unknown, taking us from what we care about to what we should care about, giving us what we want so that we want what they can give. Krishna talks about how it is unbecoming of a warrior to leave a battle, that he will live in dishonor the rest of his life, how if he has the right alignment and orientation, he can't lose in the battle, or if he does lose, even if he does lose, if he doesn't have that proper, perfect orientation, then even if he does lose, he'll have honor. And for a warrior, there is nothing better than a righteous war. He reminds him who he is just in the mundane way. And these things are all true. This is not manipulation. This is not psychological control. He's just laying out, hey, I see what you care about. I really understand what you care about. And right action, just for those mundane things that you care about, is still the optimal path. And let me walk you through it. Let me tell you why. This tactic from the known to the unknown is the only way to educate someone. If you jump into the unknown, maybe it's fascinating. Maybe it is a fun, exotic conversation of the unknown, but it is not helpful. It doesn't guide someone from where they are to where they should be. You don't start the directions for some road trip with, and then you take a right and then you're there. You start with, okay, this is the street we're on. You're going to go up 3 blocks, then take a left. And you're going to go 5 miles down, get it on the highway, go 60 miles, et cetera, et cetera. You start where people are. Now it can be fun to talk about, and when you get to Lake Tahoe, it's going to be this pure, glistening lake. These huge, massive mountains, these ice caps. You could talk about that, and it can get people excited. But so much of philosophy, so much of religion, so much of spirituality is all about that end state. It doesn't motivate us or get us to shift our behavior for where we are right now. To get us to shift that behavior where we are right now, we need to be guided towards the things that we want today, not the things that we should want down the road, being shamed, being guilt-tripped into wanting something that we don't really even know what they're talking about, like heaven, the idea of heaven. We're all supposed to want that, and none of us have any clue what the hell it is. What the preacher on the pulpit is talking about when he mentions the word heaven, and yet we all nod and say, yeah, that's what we want. Instead of getting down right on our level and saying, this is the scenario you're in. Genuinely understanding the predicament and genuinely understanding what do you want right now. A great example of this is Swami. So many of his lectures will be around eliminating stress in your life. People are not necessarily going from work and back to their house thinking about the profound. They're thinking about how to deal with the hypertension that they've got, the stress, the insomnia, whatever is there here and now, whatever that challenge is. And this philosophy, it works for dealing with stress. I am a walking example of that. 15 years ago, so stressed out of my mind. I remember breaking down in my brother's car crying because I felt like I had so much pressure on me to get the right job, to get the right grades, to get the right job, to open the right doors, then to get the right opportunities. No idea what the hell I was chasing. Stressed out of my mind. No idea what I wanted. Completely distraught to where I was breaking down. And I look back was thinking about it this morning, look back, and it's like, that guy had no pressure on him. That kid in that car breaking down actually had no pressure. Had good grades, good school. The world was my oyster. And now, 15 years later, 10 years after the ER example, 3 little kids in a very expensive city of Los Angeles, leading 3 companies. And I think I mentioned this in the first episode of the Daily Vedantic, that I cannot remember the last stressful day that I had. Swami's classes on stress reduction and elimination, it works. And I remember having some personal therapy from listening to folks like Alan Watts, Ram Dass, online for free. They're great titans of questioners and unbelievable articulations of this philosophy. And I remember dialing in every day, clicking on the videos, clicking on the lectures, putting in the headphones, because it was just immediate therapy. It was so helpful where I was in that battle. So don't get me wrong. That is where most of us are. That is so helpful, to be guided in the mundane. That is the only reason we're able to listen, to eventually get to the profound, is because we're taken from the known to the unknown. The root of the word educate means to draw out. The best teachers draw out of us what was already there that we didn't know was there. And the best teachers do that by taking us from the known to the unknown. This isn't just a unique aspect in the way Krishna is teaching and guiding Arjuna. It really is the optimal way to guide any of us. It might be your 5-year-old that you're talking to. It might be a coworker that you're trying to guide through a challenging time ahead. And this psychology and the way that Krishna teaches is not only so helpful for us reading the Gita, because it's that metaphorical battle within, that civil war raging within us, between our mind and our intellect, between our preferences and desires and likes and our higher ideals. That is what this text is all about. That's what this poem is all about, is navigating that inner battle that we are all fighting. And this divine guide guides us all from the known to the unknown, from what we know within ourselves. So why start the episode with one of the catchiest songs written in the last 30 years of Chumbawamba's I Get Knocked Down? Well, maybe it was familiar to you. Maybe it was the known. And maybe you already knew all about the theme in today's episode. But for those of you that didn't know about this psychology and approach to teaching that Krishna utilizes, well, maybe Chumbawamba hooked you into the episode, taking us from the known to the unknown. That's today's episode on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.